Are there certain things that a new DJ should include on their DJ contract? What is something that you think needs to be in a new DJ's contract?
Damages do not exceed the amount of the contract.
Okay.
So that they can't sue you for $5,000 on a $2,000 contract. If my only value to you at the time of booking me was $2,000, then then you can't sue me for $5,000. But make sure the damages don't exceed the amount of the contract.
Yeah. Now, and this is where we probably should save this one and be like, John, what can you say about this? That makes a lot of common sense, but in the same respect, like, I wonder if there's any grounds for, if the DJ did something that the couple feels it ruined their wedding, could they go after more than that, or is
Not
it really
not
kind of
if they
stuck
agreed
because
to
of
it.
that?
Not if they agreed to it in pre-contract.
So there you go. There you go. Are there other things that come to mind? Or are there other things in your contract where you're like, when I started out, I didn't put that in there, but this is something I really realized or made sense
Yeah,
to me
the
put in after?
place of venue for suit will always be my county, my town, my county, my state. Um, because I'm not going to go
Explain
to
that
their
to the average
county.
person who has no clue what you just said.
Okay, so in the event that the contract does go awry, you end up having to sue your client. They didn't pay you something they canceled, and they didn't pay you within the time. You want to make sure that the place of venue for the suit is always your location, meaning that city, town, Polk County, whatever county, city, state, in Iowa. So if you get a bride that lives in Minnesota, for me, lives in Minnesota, Missouri, or whatever, I don't have to go there to sue them. They have to come back to my place to defend themselves.
So it reduces any cost that you might have, and kind of the same idea if they decide that they want to bring charges against you. Not that they would, but if that's not whatever, still has to be your location.
Yes, yeah. Anything suits deriving from the contract or whatever, blah blah blah, should be in your city, county, and state, so that you're not going wherever they're at. It's really, I've never ever had to use it. So, but I used to do litigation of defaulted leases in my prior life, and it was always a nice thing to have. So I didn't have to, we'd have to go all over the country to mitigate all these defaulted leases.
Okay. I will say one of the things that we hear a lot of times, like, there's, I've even heard this not related to DJs, but others about putting in about a meal in your contract. Um, there's a lot of stuff that I think people talk about putting into contracts that just waters them down, doesn't add any credence to it, doesn't help the situation any. And in the end, would you really fight it if it didn't happen? Right? Like let's assume for a second you put in, I need to be fed in my contract. You show up to the wedding to go do your job, and whatever. They ran out of food, they forgot you, they forgot to include you, what, and suddenly you don't have it. Are you gonna walk out on said event? I would hope not. I would hope not. And the reason being is for two huge ones. One, the PR of you walking out over not getting fed would be so hugely negative, whether you're in the right or not, because the court of public opinion doesn't care what was in that contract. They're going to care that you walked out on that event because you didn't get fed. And the second is, if it's that important to you, bring your own food. Right? Like, if you have a medical condition, you should be bringing your own food anyway. Like that's just kind of my 2 cents. Like an emergency backup, right? Maybe they're going to feed you, take your emergency backup, and then if something happens, you don't need it. Keep it cold or whatever, take it home, and you're good to go. Um, because I know some people have medical things where they've got to eat so after so many so long, or they have issues. I get that. Then provide for yourself. Then provide for yourself. It's awesome. It's awesome. But I will also say this, right? This is one thing I heard recently, and I didn't realize it until I started analyzing it. Wedding food is not really designed to be eaten week after week after week, right? Like it's not that overly healthy. It's not, the best thing for you. So if you're continually eating it 2, 3 nights a week, every week, might not be the best option. So Eric has a good one here. I think this is a good one to keep. He says, I need the venue to allow me entry at least 90 minutes before and after the event. That's in my contract. The thing you've got to be careful there, right? The thing you've got to be careful there is your contract is with the couple, not the venue. So if the venue says, sorry, you only get an hour, you don't really have any recourse with the couple to not cover that. I think what is important to do is to have not necessarily part of the contract, but a rider, if you will, that you need to make sure that you're given, if that's something you need. If you need 90 minutes in order to set up, just make sure that this is laid out. Hey, these are the things that I need to have in order to perform for your day. Right? These are the things that I need to have. Please, if there's any of these that can't happen, I need to know so we can make adjustments. But I think you run into a little bit of a problem if the venue says, sorry, you only get an hour. I mean, you could say, well, then that's my loophole to get out of the contract. I don't know. I don't know. That's my thought.
Again, the backlash could be worse than you'd really want it to be.
Especially because at the time that some of those moments would be known, um, would just be a problem. Would potentially be a problem. Because a lot of times, unless this is a venue that you've played at before and you would know that to be the case, you probably don't find out until maybe that planning meeting. And oh, by the way, what time do you need to get in? What time how much time do you need to set up? Oh, I need 90 minutes. Oh, okay, we'll let the venue know. They tell the venue. No, they only get an hour. By the way, our wedding next weekend, the venue says you only get an hour. Those are things that happen. I know, Eric, and I'm just using yours as an example because I'll be honest, like I show up 2 hours before 2 minutes. Yeah. Whew, I really set up fast.
Yeah.
I set up 2 hours before. I show up 2 hours before if I'm doing anything more than a single small setup. Just so that I'm not rushed and everything. But there is a venue in town here. Now they don't do this anymore, but back in the day, they used to do 2 weddings in a day in each ballroom. And if you were the second DJ, you had an hour from the time the first wedding ended to the time that the second wedding's to the time you had to be set up ready to go. You had an hour. And that included the other DJ getting out of that spot that you were getting into.
And they were flipping the room, and you had to fight those people in and out. Yeah, that'd been horrible.
Oh, it was, and I think a lot of what happened was nobody wanted to get have receptions in the middle of the afternoon. They finally realized that. But yeah, Aaron's DJing for food, or he's not coming. Well, that's another story, Aaron. You and I have to go. You and I have to do dinner again when you're back in the States. But again, I come back to this, like, the things you need to have in your contract are the things that need to be there, that one, that are enforceable by, with the couple, and that protect you, but also that protect them. Don't have contracts that only cover your butt, right? They need to be, this needs to be a mutual type of situation with the couple. And I don't think Cubbie's, suit in his county, town, and state is violating that, but to prevent something, to prevent the couple from having any power for something where you screwed up, I think is not necessarily a good contract either. There needs to be a couple pieces there. Cancellation policy, I think, is a good one. Yeah. I've seen some DJs do that, right, where it's like the couple canceled on me 2 weeks before. What grounds do I have? Postponement policy. Nice. Nice. Anything else you would add? Anything else you think needs to be in there?
No, oh no, I think these are great. I was just sorry, I was zoning off on the question. Like, I thought it was one thing. But there's a layout, all those cancellations. My cancellation is 6 months because I'm a wedding DJ. I'm not going to book somebody within 6 months. So if you cancel within 6 months, you balance the entire balance is due.
Is that only weddings or is that all your events?
That's all my events.
Okay.
But I don't have corporate cancel on me ever. So it's mostly for brides. When things happen situationally, but. Mostly because, I have held this June for 2 years and I'm not going to rebook it. I wish I could. That's just how I support my family. I don't have a full-time job and not to pour mouth. This is the industry I got into and this is the job that I chose, but it's 6 months, unfortunately.
My cancellation policy, and this isn't necessarily what we were talking about. My cancellation is 90 days. It used to be 60 days. And I bumped it to 90 because I had a school cancel on me. And it came down to, and it was the most ridiculous thing. Like they already had like a super, super great deal. And they like wanted me to take off like 200 more dollars. And I was like, no. And we already have a contract. And at this point, they were 70 days out and they ended up finding somebody else and they canceled on me. Now I kept the retainer fee, but at that point, I forget what my retainer fee was. It was small, I think, at the time, and so it was like I realized I was like, yeah, I'm completely out that weekend as a result, completely out of anything that I could have had, wedding or otherwise. Um, so I was like, you know what, I'm going to bump it to 90. Now Cubbie's 6 months thing has me going, but
I mean, the
I
thing is, I'm not going to rebook it. I mean,
yeah,
I'm not.
I will say I've not with the I think that has really been the only cancellation I've had other than I've had a couple. I take it back because I've had a couple couples that have like split before the wedding. Um, but I ended up most cases I ended up rebooking because they were like farther out.
Yeah.
So
Right, and I had a dad who paid for his daughter's wedding right off the bat. Read the contract, it's in refund of any money's paid. So I flipped it. He was a military guy. We flipped it to his military ball. Like now he gets half his money. Some of his money back from the military because I'll give him a receipt that showed that he paid X amount of dollars, and then he can get the money back from the school or from the military ball.
nice.
Yeah, I mean, I work with a lot of people. I mean, I haven't sued anybody ever, so I'm like, a lot of times it's look, just pay me what my DJ would have made. You know, he's the one that's got the family. He's the one that was, he's the one that's going to be out the money. A lot of times it's going to be just pay me what I would have paid the DJ and we'll call it square. And they understand that. They realize that and they pay it and they think it's, good deal.
Yeah, and that's the thing we also have to keep in mind, right? Like with the contracts is just being smart about it. Like again, don't put anything in there that you're not willing to stand behind and enforce if push comes to shove, right? And if there's something where you're going to be like, well, I'm not gonna follow through with that, then don't put it in there. Don't let that kind of dictate how you move forward, um, going forward. Like don't use it as a scare tactic. I guess would be my advice there. Um, just again, you may never sue, you may never decide to take that contract to court, but don't water it down with things that are meaningless when it comes to enforcement.